Good morning, students. Today we're going to be learning about an artist. His name is Mondrian, and his artwork has a lot of squares, and a lot of people think this art is simple. So they look at this and they're like, anybody can do this art. But actually, this artist was really thinking a lot deeper than most people know. So he lived in a lot of different cities. He lived in New York City, Paris, Amsterdam, London. And he was also inspired by jazz music. A lot of his designs went on to become clothing. They were cars, they were bicycles. Nike also used some of these designs to create interesting sneakers. He was born in 1872, and he was considered one of the greatest artists of the 20th century. As far as abstract art goes, he was not always an abstract artist. So originally he was a landscape artist. He did a lot of still lifes. So basically ended up going through a lot of different phases in his art, which is actually very common. Most artists started off in a very realistic manner, and then they went into more of an abstract or experimental stage in their art. But he liked the squares. He liked to stick with those in the end of his life. And a lot of people thought they were almost like grids for a city. So New York was in the middle of the jazz age, and people were really like running around a lot. They were dancing. There was a lot of people out on the streets kind of running, and it was bustling. So it was really busy. Three primary colors that he used were the red, yellow, and blue color scheme. So we talk about color scheme, that those are the colors the artist chooses to take up the majority of their scene. So he influenced a lot of people, including me. So we're going to be using Ziplock bags. So our materials are going to be Ziplock bags and Sharpie markers. And if you don't have these, you can draw a grid, which is lines that make squares and they cross over. You can draw that onto a piece of paper. So this is an example of actually a print I did by putting marker directly onto the Ziploc bag. So you can draw this out right onto the Ziploc bag, and then you just put the paper on top, and then you rub the top of the paper, and it will actually make a print. So that's kind of a really cool option. So right now, I'm going to sort of tilt the camera a little bit so you guys can see my Ziploc. I'm going to start just making the squares onto the Ziploc. Move back a little bit so you guys can see. So the grid just means that the lines are going to cross over. And you guys can think about how big you want the squares and rectangles to be. So it actually looks a lot better if you don't have everything match up and you kind of offset the lines a little bit. But you want to get the black lines in there first, and then you're going to fill those squares in as we go along. So here's sort of a later stage of the grid, and I'll hold that up. So I completed that a couple of days ago. And what's really nice about this is you can tape this anywhere. And what I did was I cut the Ziploc bag so it became bigger. And what you guys can do is you can tile this, you can piece it together by using clear tape. So if you do one Ziploc bag and you think you want to fill an entire window, you can keep taping and keep adding to this space. So I'm gonna do a video too to show you what that looks like on the window at my house.